right, thank you very much, Kalaris. The German engine still seems to run smoothly here. I mean, they're continuing their trend from the last regionals in Tours France. But something that I wanted to mention, something that I recognized and noticed was the difference in communication between those two teams. mYinsanity, they were constantly talking to each other. They were like, hey, this is up, this objective is down, and let's focus this guy. And on the other hand, we have PBA. They were almost silent the entire duration of the game. Gilly, is that something that stands out to you or that you find awkward?
So they have 3 members from GIA, from the team that represented Taiwan both at BlizzCon and Spring. And what I remember them is they were pretty quiet, just in general as a team.
Right.
So not maybe that much different, but generally when you see a team that has quiet comms, they are feeling pretty defeated. And how could you not, and getting so behind so early in that game like that?
All right. Jehao, let's actually see what this game was all about, because it was fairly one-sided, let's be honest here. I think you can highlight some of the points that were important for mYinsanity.
I think I'm actually going to highlight a lot of what Dread was talking about. As we see very early on, this is just an early fight, but what we're going to be looking at in particular is just the positioning overall. In the backside, we're going to see just a lot of action up at the top, but what you don't see, let's pause it right here. What you see is all the action right about here. But the real action, Dread, as you talked about, poke potential, who's right here? Li Ming, there the entire time. Now watch as we go ahead and play this. Li Ming's positioning is just completely annihilating every bit that they have. She's not done. Wait a minute. Bye, Falstad. I mean, over and over again, we saw Li Ming, just great positioning, safe positioning, poking, poking, poking. It's just beautiful play by HasuObs there to be able to rotate over. And the rest of the action looked like it was all in one place, but the real action was going on there with Li Ming.
I mean, I agree. He played it very, very well. I think actually the Lunara was a great pickup as well. Obviously, it's a comfort pick, but it paired well with the Li Ming in the sense that she provides the poke to get him low, and then Li Ming's going to hit you with the reset. It's just one after the other, and things are going to be falling down. So.
Now, we were kind of skeptical towards the last pick coming in from PBA here, the Vala that is. Do you think it really was counterproductive, or do you think they would have lost with any other hero pick as well?
So, I mean, mYinsanity is just such a good team. I think that they're always the underdog. But with the gray main ban and then pick up on Li Ming, it really did hurt the player, God Dog, who ended up being on Vala.
Yeah.
Because those are 2 of the most played heroes that I saw him playing during the regionals. The other one being Sylvanas, and I think they just felt like Sylvanas wasn't really an option there. They needed more damage for the Immortal. So I do think that hurt them a lot even more.
Right. Talking about hurt, let's actually take a look at the second replay and show some more hurt on TBA.
But this is the part. This is not one where we're actually going to be seeing, hey, we're going to get a bunch of kills. We could almost instantly, I mean, once again, this is when the Immortal is on the opposite side. And once again, we'll go ahead and freeze it. We're going to highlight one more time. HasuObs, right here. Dread, walk me through what you said one more time about their strategy.
Lunara gets him low, and then Li Ming gets the reset.
And then even when not gets a reset, objective and poke.
Yeah.
What are we looking at right here? Boop. Right there. Over and over again. That secured that Immortal, and they just continued to push over and over again. All it was positioning. Normally when it's on your side and it's kind of on the friendly side, we saw the aggression come out from the alternate team to try and put the pressure on. The problem is Li Ming has so much range and so much poke potential over and over again. That's what we saw.
And yeah,
so
go ahead.
Something that really is amazing to me too is I talked about flexibility for mYinsanity, and Darkmuck is not normally their Lunara player. He can play her, and I've seen him play her before, but Darkmuck is typically the melee flex role, and yet they wanted to come out and have this Tyrande, Li Ming, Lunara composition for great poke, and they were able to do it because they have such flexible players.
Right. It's exactly the opposite of PBA, pretty much. When we said that that was their weakness, mYinsanity shows that it's not theirs. And they definitely came out on top here. Something I also wanted to bring up real quickly, against all that poke and burst damage from Li Ming, do you think that Divine Palm would have been a little bit better?
I don't think that would have been the answer. But yes, because the Vala pick. If they had taken another dive hero and they decided to go as a 7-sided strike, like Sunder Split, Tyrael moving in with Sanct, and another hard engage, it would have been a more appealing option. But since obviously opting into the Vala, you're going to be sitting back, and keeping your team alive is going to be more important than anything.
Right. Okay, let's actually move on and take another look at the maps that are going to be happening here. The second battleground in this series is going to be Tomb of the Spider Queen, guys. It's actually the first time that we see it in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken. Jawa, can you talk us through this battleground and what's so important on this map.
I think one of the most important things is the laning phase, and I believe when we looked at mYinsanity's draft, they have a heavy priority to ban Zul, as do a lot of teams on Tomb of the Spider Queen, to be able to deal with that. If you can get the proper amount of push, that's something that we see a lot of on teams on this map in particular.
mYinsanity also likes Johanna quite a bit.
Yeah.
And she is obviously going to be a good one to help out if they want for wave clear as well, because Knight takes
And
Pawn.
the denial of the turn-ins. I think that's one of the things, if that shows up. I mean, we talk about the flashlight, so to speak, that we too tend to see here.
Yeah, and it would actually be the first performance for a Johanna in this tournament as well, because as we mentioned, she has fallen a little bit under the radar with Anubarak emerging, also Arthas being a little bit more popular ever since he received his rework. So definitely going to be interesting whether we see the Crusader here making an appearance.
If this is one of the maps, Dread, we talk about this on and off, even though Illidan is probably one of the most powerful heroes, would you say that this is one of his weaker maps, if not his weakest?
It's definitely his weakest map, but Europe actually has a no Illidan policy for the most part. You see them hovering it right now. Like, it's funny when I cast at Europe events versus North America, they'll be like, well, it's a bad map, we can let Illidan through. And Europe, legitimately, half the time they go like, why do you guys let Illidan through drafts? Like, that's the first thing that goes, how does he make it through a single draft? So I'm not surprised if they do decide to get the ban onto that. But again, the Zul is going to be a very high priority pick. Tassadar is off the table, and that's one of the best wave clear heroes on this map specifically. And instead they go with Zagara.
That was my first thought when I saw Tassadar. Now at 13, some of the warriors, they do have Burning Rage. They can help clear up some of that creep. Else you got to kind of target it throughout. But somebody like a Tassadar basically puts his Oracle out and says, don't worry, I got this.
Yeah.
I almost feel like Zagara is still somewhat heavily contested here for certain teams, and on this map in particular, more so than others.
I also think that maybe, okay, so with banning Zagara, they're wondering if maybe Illidan would be picked up. It'd be kind of a bait. But PBA do like to play Zul, and they're going to grab him here, and that means that they have a lot of wave clear with that. And a quick Kael'thas and Johanna pickup from mYinsanity.
That is just a lot of wave clear, and that is ever so crucial on Tomb of the Spider Queen in particular. Back to the Zagara ban though, during the European regionals, we saw that HasuObs, hands down, was the most convincing Zagara in the tournament. Landing those mods, really crucial. Why do you think would they ban it away from themselves here?
I think it was more than anything they were worried about the vision control that their opponents would be able to get, because they knew the Zul was going to come out. So that provides great wave clear in the top 2 lanes. And so getting vision control and denial in the bottom half with Tassadar being denied and not an option is a counter response. I think it was more a responsive ban to the Tassadar. I think if Tassadar had him in there, they wouldn't have been as worried about it.
I think 100%. I mean, the minute I saw Tassadar, I thought, all right, they're probably going to look to control. And that's one of the biggest things why we see Johanna is the fact that she's able to rotate over. If she needs to get out, she's got Iron Skin. She's got her shield glare to be able to poke and deny turn-ins. It's something that we see. We call it goaltending, at least in the North American scene. But it's one of the things that we do see a little bit of a denial, since there are two turn-in points. If you can control one with one hero or vision, then you tend to opt for that.
Yeah, vision is so important, but there's also potential a lot for rotations and ganks. PBA are going to grab Muradin and Sonya, so they have some lockdown now, along with the Bone Prison.
Oh yeah.
With Zul too.
That's definitely a lot of lockdown. And they managed to chain their crowd control abilities together, especially on a map where distances between lanes are so short.
Exactly.
They were definitely good for some early game kills.
This could be the first game where we don't see Illidan in bans or picks. Like, I feel with Zul there, Bone Prison, it's a tough counter to Illidan. Sonya there, another tough counter. And I
also
don't...
the Cursed Strikes.
Asmodean? Maybe that's what they saw with Johanna Kael'thas.
I think I just heard mYinsanity laugh. Like, legit, mYinsanity just laughed.
I think it was word for word. Asmodean. It's not reasonable to fear it, especially when it comes to mYinsanity. The wave clear that they have, the Johanna, like, it was set up for it, so I don't think it's that reasonable. I think mYinsanity just more than anything, because they know it is a tool they could pull out, they're just afraid of it, and they thought that was entertaining. But mYinsanity already has a lot of wave clear. They're going to go with the Rhaegar, it looks like here. No surprise, because it's going to be able to make it through. He is still their priority support over Kharazim. It's just typically most people prioritize Rhaegar so high, they're like, we'll take Kharazim later.
Right, and Falstad, always a nice addition to have. It's a pretty scary backlane here for mYinsanity with Kael'thas and Falstad, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once Kael'thas starts to get into his later talents, then he has so much burst. Falstad, it's always a scare for a team when you see when you're up against Falstad, not only because of boss points, but also the fact that he can fly into the back line and cause chaos to somebody who might be trying to run away from the fight, who already took some damage.
Talking about Kael'thas, think about what this means for PBA. Sonya, Muradin, Zul, all frontline heroes. Kael'thas loves when you group up, and he loves those frontline heroes. Unless there's some type of hard engage, you have a possible triple gravity lapse. You have the living bomb that has the exploding bomb.
Yeah.
That can all spread through over and over, and I think that's one of the things for PBA. They've got to be very careful. And small lanes on two.
When you see two Kael'thas versus a bunch of melee in the Korean regions, they've been starting to run a more Flame Strike focused build, getting Burned Flesh at level 7, which if you can hit 2 or more heroes, then it does 8% bonus damage equal to 8% of the health, and then you get Fury of the Sunwell for 2, and that is just so much more melee. If they add Karazim here, that's a full melee team.
I mean, there's Malfurion's the only support that you see a team going that would be ranged.
Karazim make it full melee.
Like,
there's literally no support in the game that is not melee heavy here. Uther, Karazim, and the only ones left, as you mentioned, Red, is Malfurion or Lieutenant Morales, but we haven't seen her in a very long time.
Yeah,
nobody can.
How did you predict that? Kendrick the Prophet!
It's literally the only support that can keep her ranged, but she's not a good AoE healer.
She isn't a good AoE healer, and they're going to have a lot of AoE damage coming up from them. I actually don't even know if I don't see them going into.
It doesn't matter if you dive if you have false dead.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, oh, hello team, no, goodbye. Like that's what false dead says.
You say goodbye, I say hello. Vice versa.
Don't you think Ethereal with Sanctification would have made more sense instead of an Anubarak maybe to sort of prevent the gust from happening?
I think it's an option that they could have gone with for sure. I feel like there's a lot of other questions. I guess I'm trying to figure out the logic with some the choices into the draft here. I don't know. mYinsanity is hovering over an Arthas though. Arthas has a lot of effectiveness against these melees, like an absurd amount.
They want to prove that Arthas is still good against a team that's called Please Buff Arthas.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the ultimate disrespect, but...
Is this, like we saw a triple backline last time, is this basically like we have to at least give some fortification to the front line with somebody like, is it almost a necessity at this point?
The only map that really excels with triple backline is Battlefield of Eternity, which is why I think you saw it there. I don't think we'll see much of it this entire tournament outside of that map. At the same time, I don't know too many maps where I feel like the 4-man melees, I didn't mind 2 to 3 or even, I don't know, the whole situation when it comes to the composition out of Please Buff Arthas here. Their wave clear isn't necessarily absurdly dominant. I don't, like outside of just diving, chain CCing a single target after Zul maybe getting a prison onto one of them. Outside of that, it's just, I don't see what their win condition is, especially with Gust.
And just imagine late game scenarios, right? You're never going to be able to outpoke your opponents and drive them away from the tournament points. You're never going to be able to contest prolonged boss fights. What is their strategy, JL? How do they have to execute their melee comp against Kael'thas?
They're all in. They are all in with this comp. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're going in. You could probably throw some skeletal mages on the backline to secure at least a little bit of a slow, a little bit of extra damage, but that requires you to go full on against Kael'thas. Full on.
Yeah, what scares me is that they are all in, and you know a hero who is not is Lieutenant Morales. She does not. She wants to be nowhere near the other team. So what happens? Do they all just jump in? Arthas is gonna be like, oh, okay, you guys do that. Hi, Morales. We're gonna be friends for a little bit, and she's gonna be gone.
It's kind of the story that we saw of last game. Like when you look at their composition, half of the team has an idea of how to approach a team fight, and the other one doesn't. Where you see mYinsanity is very mix and match in their approach. They're very good at poking, but if you want to get the engage, get a nitty gritty, they can do what they need to take out a team fight. Whereas it feels like Please Buff Arthas is just like, well, we have the all in, and hopefully it's going to work out. Because like you can't sit back and poke. You have false stat, and you're going to have boss. So they're just going to be wailing on you. You decide to commit to a team fight. Now you have Arthas and Gust. Like your answers don't exist on either front, it feels like, and it's not like your laning phase is dominant enough to justify that choice.
Is Falstad just licking his chops saying, I
pretty
can't
much
wait to stack this? I'm going to stack so hard against your comp. I mean, can you imagine the minute that starts to hit later in the game?
Right.
Yeah, there's the only thing I see that Please Buff Arthas can do, ironically enough, in this situation to win the team fight is actually killing Arthas, like Locust Swarm having the effectiveness against so essentially using the Locust Swarm to kill the ghouls, and then getting rid of his ghouls very quickly, and then having enough chain CC to be able to take out the single target. Keep in mind that is through the peeling that's going to come out of Blumby on the JoJo.
Right.
So,
is he going to do that, or is he going to go Cindergosa, though? They have 2 tanks.
Oh, guys,
I was
real
just
quick, I'm
I was
sorry.
just gonna say, by the way, yeah, I just got word that the draft was not being displayed properly,
Okay.
so we have to take back a lot of the criticism that we uttered towards
That
This makes
changes
more
things a little
sense.
bit.
This makes
And
more sense.
This is the actual draft, so we don't have a full melee comp here. No Anubarak, but it was Li Ming.
It would have been
being
fun.
picked here. Yeah, it would have been a lot of fun here, to be honest.
I mean, the fact that Li Ming's back there, I think, provides a little bit of return. I mean,
My brain.
I don't think
We still have Morales,
four-man
though.
melee comp
Yeah.
was mYinsanity bringing out the insanity of the draft. I was like, wait a minute. I'm glad to see it's a little bit more normal, but you're still looking at 3 frontline heroes against skill. I mean, that still furthers the point of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is
Let's
3
put
melee
it this
heroes
way:
up front.
they would have, or they had to change a couple more heroes in order to make us respect that draft and be a little bit more positive towards the outcome, right? Because I'm also really worried about Morales here.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what heroic ability she's go for, she's not going to gain a lot of value. Medevac, not great on this map in particular. Stimdrone, gust away, and just wait until it's over.
Yeah, Medevac, or not even Medevac, just Medic as a whole only really excels whenever you win the poke war,
Yeah.
and they definitely don't in this situation.
So I'm afraid nobody is going to be courageous enough to root in favor of PBA. Let's still give it a try, though. Dreadnought, who's going to win game number 2 in this series?
I even if the draft wasn't that convincing, mYinsanity.
All right, Gilly.
Yeah, I'm going to go with mYinsanity.
Please Buff Arthas got their wish. The only problem is Arthas on the other team. mYinsanity.
And I have to be, agreeing with these guys. I mean, of course you could say I'm biased because I'm German after all, but hey, I think we can agree on, that mYinsanity's draft just looks immaculate. Really good performance in game 1 as well. So without further ado, let's throw it over to the caster's desk to Todd and Kalaris, who are eagerly waiting.
All right, thank you very much, guys. As all that confusion was sorted out and good to go, Li Ming stands as a better pick overall, considering what was going on.
Yeah, definitely
So-
a better pick than Anubarak, I think, in this case. Yeah.
I think so. We can get into game number 2 here as mYinsanity go up against PBA. To the left-hand side, it will be mYinsanity with Darkmok on Arthas, Splendor on Rhaegar, Nurok on Kael'thas, Blumby on Johanna, and HasuObs on Falstad. And then to the right-hand side, in the red, we have Lieutenant Morales being played by Zola. Goddog will be on Li Ming. Baphomet will be on Zul. Scroll on Muradin. And finally, Sonya is being played by Alpha. Let's get into game number 2, Todd, to see if they can actually make a difference.
Absolutely, let's do it, man. That draft was hilarious, but oh, Falstad. Okay, well, he knows
All right,
what he's
Hasu.
doing. That draft was really funny. On one hand, you had like PBA that looked like they flown here for, or they traveled here for 15 hours and lost the map number 1 very hard, which is what happened. And on the other side, you had mYinsanity, all laughs and smiles after every single pick. And the funny thing is, there was a mistake made with the draft showing Anubarak over Li Ming. But when that was corrected, they were still laughing. mYinsanity, that is.
They were still happy with it, and looks like already a fight is going to break out very, very quickly in towards the middle, and Blumby will tank up for days. You've got to remember that as much as PBA have got such a strong front line, you've got on the other side an Arthas and Johanna to try and chew through. That is not, it's not easy to get through Johanna. Never mind Arthas and Johanna. So they will be sitting pretty at the front for a long time.
Especially with somebody like Splendor on your team. Splendor is definitely one of the best supports in Europe, if not the world. Plays so well, really made a name for himself. Used to be all about bakery over in Europe, but nowadays Splendor is really, really good and impressing me.
Bakery might have something to say about that later on during the tournament. We shall see. But the thing is that you're right. I mean, for the most part, he has been, by a lot of people's merits, the most improved player in the entire European scene.
Yeah.
Splendor from Navi all the way back way when to now playing on mYinsanity. Fantastic support player. And he's showing that in spades, especially in that previous game.
And I think it's very important also, Gillyweed... oh, wait a second. Were they going to engage? No. Gillyweed was touching on it a little bit. Like, they have so many flex players. Whoa! Alpha at the top. Almost got caught here. Howling Blast barely didn't land. Yeah, Gillyweed was touching a little bit on how they have so many players here in mYinsanity that can play a lot of different heroes. HasuObs is one of them. Darkmok is one of them.
Ooh, Scroll. That was quite an aggressive jump there forwards, and Baphomet might take a little bit of punishment because of that. Likewise, Scroll did move away for the moment. So thankfully Baphomet's okay. The thing is that Morales, yes, as long as they don't get on towards Morales, she will keep this team alive and healthy for a long time, and they're relying on that front line to hold strong.
Yeah, do you think Army of the Dead is a certainty? Because as much as, you know, they're going to need to stay alive. Whoa,
Darkmok, he's dead. He's dead. There's no way he's getting out of that. That will be first blood going over to Please Buff Arthas as they kill off Arthas. So Skrull will just move away from him.
I don't know if they wanted to be buffed in this game, because they're facing him.
Their logo has like a tear on it scrolling down Arthas' cheek. I guess that's just kind of like representative of what we just witnessed.
They think Arthas is too weak, but yet they might lose to Arthas in this game.
I know, it's brilliant.
Go figure.
I was hoping that they were going to run Arthas this tournament. We'll see if they survive. But for now, we will have, once again, them just kind of slowing things down. But you're right. I mean, you could see Syndra Ghost on here. It would help out the Web Weavers quite a lot. That's another aggressive move on forward here, though, on towards Nurok. Will he go down? Barely saved.
Wow.
And kept alive by Splendor.
God Dog was being chased a little bit, but they're going to turn on Arthas here, and nobody's going to die for now. Yeah, the thing is, if you go Syndra Goza, that's such a good way to eventually get to the back line and blow up that that medic. If you can do that, if you get Morales in the start of the fight, it's over, right? Like there is no chance for PBA to actually win the fight, and I feel like this should be the goal. But at the same time, if you do that, and somehow you don't succeed in taking her down, then the rest of the team is gonna struggle a lot. And
to that point, that's what you see a lot from Lieutenant Morales players now, just in general. You see a lot of survivability talents for them. That's why we're seeing the block at level 4 for Morales here, which is kind of not what people used to do with Morales. They used to be just fully healing intensive, but now you realize that, well, actually, the healing beam is just good on its own, regardless. Couples therapy comes in later on normally, but going for this block will help out a lot at level 4.
And so far, very clean positioning as well. From Morales staying very, very far behind. You know, all it takes, though, is 1 or 2 times being placed a little bit poorly, and you're going to pay for it, especially against a team as solid as mYinsanity.
You're totally right. Unless she's got people in front of her in the lanes, she's actually not going across the 1/3 of the lane. She's not going beyond the egg point at all. As, once again, Skrull quite far forward here. Does get locked down for a little moment, but this front line is still very strong. Sonya dashes on in there with a spear. Will spin around for a little bit, but nobody dies.
Yeah, which is definitely much better than in the previous game. They were already 2 levels behind in the previous game at that moment in time. So I guess Morales is doing the job here so far.
Sneaky Blumby gets that turn in, and they will be able to get those Web Weavers going quite fast.
PBA has a slight experience lead right now. It's probably going to change with the Web Weavers coming in, but doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, with the soak being even across the board, that 1 kill actually made quite the difference here to start things off.
After that map #1, if I were them right now, I'd be as happy as if I had already won.
Yeah, it's definitely a much better start for them here, considering the more unconventional draft. Once again, actually, the cleanse goes on towards Darmok there for a moment, as he will put on some pressure, and that could actually be Baphomet going down. That will even things up in experience for the second takedown on towards Muradin. That's a lot of their front line dead, and just before Web Weavers are really going to get to the walls and do their damage, they could take some towers here.
mYinsanity's synergy is so good. There were all 5 heroes here in the middle. Sonya was still staying at the bottom for PBA, so they capitalized on this with 2 takedowns here. And you can tell these guys practice so much together and have such a great communication.
As quick as that, a 1-level lead from PBA having that little lead there. They were quite
It wasn't due to the Web Weaver even pushing or anything. It's just like they took a great fight.
Yeah, PBA was quite aggressive and towards that, and you can I keep seeing Skrull like jumping forwards into these fights, and one's got to wonder, you know, sometimes as Muradin, you do want to be saving that dwarf toss to actually get out of stickier situations.
Level 7 talents kicked in a little bit earlier. Gravity Crush here on the Kael'thas. You see anything out of the ordinary? Does cleanse surprise you?
No, not too much. Icebound Fortitude is something that isn't as common on Arthas. Normally you see the Death Coil talent going over towards him, but it still has its place, especially with Biting Cold following it up at level 4 as well. So a bit more of a kind of hybrid build from Arthas as opposed to focusing on Death Coils.
We're about to have the Syndra Goza question answered, and do they try and force a fight, and do they succeed as well?
Yeah, we shall find that out. As funny as
Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead goes on. And the thing is as well, is because there's been so much fighting, Eternal Hunger is almost fully stacked already on Darkmok. So him as a warrior at the front is actually doing sizable chunks of damage early on. That's a fight actually going on down towards the bottom. Skrull did get pushed away by Darkmok, who likewise took quite a bit of damage himself.
Yeah, I think PBA, they're not going to make the mistake of fighting too early this time. They definitely need to be patient, make sure they get level 10. They are very close to getting their own turn in, but so is mYinsanity here. They're missing 5 Splendors, turning the first 3, while the rest of his team is covering. He gets it. They're 2 away here.
Oh, Muradin. Oh, I don't know where you died, my friend, but you did go down somewhere. And so that is going to cause some problems once again. I really want to see
that's going to be a turn in for sure, I think.
Yeah, it's very difficult to deny
mYinsanity
on a 5v4, and it will be once again.
Oh, they're catching you at the top.
And they will take down Zul here as we get to these kills a little bit later. But that's really, really good stuff by them to get those extra kills just before level 10's hit, so they can't even mount a strong position. Denied Gust as well, but didn't hit anything. Ooh.
And you can tell, like, again, PBA, as soon as they're out of position just for 1 second, they get punished for it. Even here, like, they were under the fort and they get kind of chased down. They lose half of their hit points very, very quickly. So they can't be allowed here to make any of these kind of mistakes. Their own level 10 is now in, though.
Skeletal Mages for Zul as well.
mYinsanity is missing a bunch of ultimates, so this could be a great time.
Oh, the Ancestral onto Nurok! He took so much damage so quickly, he's going to die off anyway. So that is a great fight here by PBA. With those Skeletal Mages slowing down everything, they got so much damage on towards Kael'thas, the exact target they needed to start off that fight and mount a comeback.
This was a great time for them to take a fight. So many of the ultimates here on mYinsanity were missing. That deal allowed, though, the Web Weavers at the top and bottom to do a lot of damage.
We can take a look at that again. Look how much damage Nurok was able to take there. That was after the Ancestral Healing had already hit onto him. Alpha had already gotten onto him so quickly. And importantly, Stim Drone was active on him during that whole time. So that's why we saw Kael'thas get chunked down by Wrath of the Berserker and Stim Drone.
And Liming was having a field day in the back.
Oh,
like shooting down everybody with those lasers.
Shoo, shoo.
Whoa, HasuObs.
I would fly away.
You're in enemy territory, bro. The rest of his team gets there, though. I think now it's going to be mYinsanity in a second that's going to have more heroics than their opponent, so they could try and go for a fight.
Now that I mentioned that, actually, with Volstad's positioning there, HasuObs, he's always very, very thoughtful about how he's playing. He actually, at level 4, took Updraft, which means his barrel roll has got 40% extra range. So even when you're in those kind of stickier situations, everyone surrounding you, you still have a very, very long barrel roll to save you in those situations.
But I still would have flown away.
Yeah, I would have flown away too. I'm a scared bird. I'm a scaredy bird.
I feed enough as it is.
Red Web Weavers get turned in. Web Weavers, that's what I almost said. But level 13s get kicked in as well here for mYinsanity. As will be Flowrider going over once again, and Pyromaniac on the side of Nurok. So it's all about them bombs and the reduced cooldown at the moment. They're very go-to build here for Kael'thas.
Yeah, Frigid Winds is going to be very helpful too against such a melee-heavy composition here from Arthas. Can PBA here come back on the experience with these Web Weavers? I guess they're definitely going to help.
Yeah, the Frigid Winds is something that you you highlight, and it's really important because against this amount of melee, especially against Sonya, if she gets Stim Drone, you slow down all of those attacks as long as Arthas is near her, of course. So that's very important.
I'm a bit surprised that PBA wasn't soaking at the bottom here. They've been doing a much poorer job than mYinsanity of spreading out and making sure there's always one person per lane. But mYinsanity is going to go for the fight here, looks like. They try to force it for a second.
And Skull being pressured by Blumby as well as Darkmonk. Can't quite do too much with that, though. As once again, they haven't had too many opportunities to get onto Morales. And with her supporting Sonya and this front line as best they are, this is definitely the game that PBA can pull back off mYinsanity if there was ever a draft to do it with.
Spell Shield is going to be very helpful here for sure, from more or less from this point onwards. That top fort is very, very low. A little bit surprised they're not trying to push for that.
Yeah, you could get a poke on that.
I think they're just looking for a fight.
That wave actually might kill off that. The second wave up towards actually meets it.
Oh, they've got exactly 60 here. Those mYinsanity.
Volstad, where is he? He's not flying in at the moment, and Splendor's taking a lot of damage. Rega has to get away from there. It's not easy for him to keep himself alive because Ancestral doesn't heal him. That's a gust on towards 3 of them. They are slowing them down, but Darkmonk is in the thick of things at the moment there. But at the same time, HasuObs comes on around. Alpha was pushing away Blumby, and they're going to disengage for now.
Yeah, great disengage. Army of the Dead really did its work here. Darkmonk didn't end up dying.
That's
Alpha gonna get back in there.
He can't be doing that too much. I mean, he's got Morales with him, sure, but if the turnaround happened and they blew up Sonya, she's got 40-some gems on her at the moment.
And Zul is soaking at bottom. He's not even thinking about fighting anytime soon.
God Dog's out of there. Sonya goes in once again. Ancestral heal onto HasuObs. He doesn't have any mana, though, to really do too much damage with this. And he's going to actually put Osh on against them. 3 of them are very, very low at the moment. If Alpha sticks around, he could die off. He's going to drop 45 gems. They need to get back in there somehow to actually pick those up. They're going to zone them out. Li Ming's going to go down as well. A third with Muradin. And they lost so many gems with that. I'm so surprised they stuck around with that many gems on Sonya.
Seems like they're having some miscommunication here for sure. Zul wasn't even there. He went to the bottom and was soaking almost as if like nothing was happening on the map. The rest of your team's about to get caught. Like, that was so weird. And more or less did a fantastic job of keeping everybody alive up until a certain point. You know, when all of your teammates are getting blasted down.
There's only so much you can do.
Exactly, yeah. 3 of them are on very low hit points. You can't keep everybody alive. So they definitely should have pulled back. If one guy gets caught and dies, then you know, so be it, I guess. But like, instead of losing a fight like this.
It's not only the fact that you can't keep 3 people alive, it's the fact that when Sonya goes in that deep, as Morales, even with the defensive talents, you're putting yourself in a really risky spot for you to just get turned on and then you die with no repercussions at all. And that is going to be another kill off. Oh, Zul goes down.
He was so far out.
Yeah. Oh, no. They need to keep everyone alive for as long as possible, especially when these web weavers are coming. Zul is one of their best tools to clean up this kind of situation with his cleave, with his scythe, but they don't have that available for another 20 seconds.
He seems quite out of sync here with the rest of the team in the last few minutes with the actions that have been happening. Now they need to wait for him. Level 16 kicked in here.
Imagine if he was down there cleaning up that bottom wave. I mean, Sonya, yes, can come in and whirlwind away, but Zul would have been a great tool to clean that up. So they take a little bit of losses.
Yeah, and with those level 16 kicking in, even level 17 now, mYinsanity is just going to keep on pressing forward. We could be seeing the boss, I guess, coming into play down the line if they wanted to go for that and try and force a fight if PBA was to try and defend it.
Yeah. And
already 38 gems as well for the next turn-in, which is going to be for 65 here.
They've done a really good job of collecting while all of this is going on, so they've been retaining quite a bit as well. There hasn't been many kills on the side of PBA during all of this, and even when there has, mYinsanity has won the fight, so they've been able to pick up any gems that have been dropped.
Wow, Remorseless Winter, level 16 talent here for Arthas is going to be so good again. Another great talent to face a melee-heavy composition.
Yeah, of course. Being able to just root someone if they stick in that Frozen Tempest for 3 seconds. And it can only activate once every 10 seconds, of course, so it's not like activating all over the place. But it's...
One time is enough.
Yeah, one time is definitely enough. But it's enough for Kael'thas to get his Gravity Lapse on towards that target and then burst them down, especially with Sun King's Fury being picked up at 16.
The trap is set.
Dun, dun, dun. Imagine he like slowly walks forward, gets gusted by HasuObs into the... It's not going to happen, but anyway. Alpha, quite far forwards once again, getting healed by Morales. We'll keep him alive. Going on
they do
towards
some good
Darkmok.
damage on Darkmok, but I'm not sure he's the one they should be targeting here, really.
Skull going in very far as well. Ancestral healing on Darkmok. No. He's not going to die anytime soon, and even when they go in far against him, Stim Drone's been popped, and Sonya didn't get anything off of that Stim Drone. It was not the best of trades, and it's a long cooldown, 80 seconds, so they didn't take the fight. Morales is very far away from this. They get gusted towards the back lines here of mYinsanity, and they're going to lose members. Morales can't go that far in. A perfect fight here by mYinsanity, isolating and conquering.
There were 3 ultimates here available, 2 for mYinsanity, with the Blessed Shield landing big time, and they're almost going to get a full wipe. Only God Dog survives, which I guess is maybe the best option for them as one hero to try and buy some time. But what can he really do against these guys?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that could be game here if mYinsanity pushes on as far as they want to, but you're right.
It's going to be a Kylai's core 1%.
Oh, no, don't do it to me. They are moving for it. They've got 15 seconds of a window here. You're right, Li Ming is one of the best defenders in the entire game, but they're also healthy. They've got so much health. They wrap around this core. There is not going to be any way that PBA can deal with this, and that will be game number 2 going over to mYinsanity here, moving on into the winners match in their group. Despite somebody get blown up, it's not going to be a 1%. I'm not cursed. There you go. Well played, mYinsanity. Moving on.
A great performance here from these guys. You can tell they practice a lot and they're very motivated here. That was very, very clean series here. Yeah. Ideal. Start of the day, I think, what was it? 10-0 in takedowns in map number 1?
Yes.
12-5 in map number 2. Maybe a little bit disappointing by your elitist standards, but...
Well, the thing is as well, for mYinsanity, when I look at that second game, is that a lot of what they did, part of what they did in the draft was slightly reactionary. I mean, you go up against a comp which is slightly unusual to deal with initially. Then you're like, well, I guess we'll take Arthas as our last pick here and have a very strong front line of Arthas and Johanna. Not the most usual play style, but the double warrior meta here from mYinsanity worked out well.
He did the job, and more or less at first was doing a good job of keeping everybody alive, but then maybe they had a few missed calls and a little bit of miscommunication there, and PBA will pay the price for that with a loss in their first series.
Yeah, so they'll be going down on to the losers match, which could potentially see them eliminated throughout this group. But of course, mYinsanity move on forward into that winners match. Looking good in this group so far.
Yeah.
I would say that they've got good chances going through this group. It's not quite the MVP and X team of the other group, so they've got good chances to move on to the second
With
group
how
stage.
good mYinsanity has looked, with the second place in Leicester and the first place in Tours,
Yeah.
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they made top 4. I'm not saying they are favorites to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised. But they need to keep on playing well.
I have the same thoughts, and likewise, I think our panel did have similar thoughts as well. You know, this is definitely the globals where we could see one of our Western teams, potentially mYinsanity, moving on into that top 4. So there is that potential.
It could be the time.
It could be the time.
It's time to bring back that BlizzCon feeling. Europe versus
Right.
North America in the grand finals.
I know, and Dingtas...
With North America winning, of all things.
That's true, that's true. Dingtas is going to hate me because I once again didn't bring a Great Britain flag. But anyway, regardless, we shall head over to the panel to see what they have to say about our series.
Thank you very much, Kalaris. And indeed, a stellar performance by mYinsanity, not dropping a map again against Please Buff Arthas, who admittedly looked like they had issues in the draft, in team fight compositions and situations. So I don't think we should value this victory too highly. But what struck the most about mYinsanity here, Jay-Ho?
I think decision-making every step of the way. I think the number one thing that I saw, there was no hesitation on any of the calls.
Right.
We were watching it in the back, and literally every single call that they made was without hesitation, and they just executed perfectly.
Yeah, that really comes down to the synergy that they have. The leadership is very good too, but the fact that they have been together as a team for a long time now, their roster really coming into its own, especially in this summer season, just means that they finally know that they can trust the shot calling and they know how each person is going to be playing so that they can very effectively be able to do that.
Yeah, and PBA, we mentioned it briefly, they were considered to be the strongest no-name team. Do you think they lived up to that reputation, Brett, or do you think they were a little bit disappointing?
I think they were put up against opponents that would make them look disappointing, but I don't think it was quite there. I mean, obviously the draft seemed a little surprising to me when it came to the teams, but overall, mYinsanity, I mean, they projected about being top 4. I mean, they are a terrifying team to play against this early.
Definitely. And talking of terrifying, let's actually look at one of the most terrifying moments in this game. Jay-Ho, take us through replay number 1.
Yeah, I think we've got some good stuff, especially after what we talked about early on. And we're going to see exactly, let's go ahead and pause it instantly right here. This is actually something that worked out, and this is what we highlighted early in the draft. The Skeletal Mages right there for Zul was the only type of way that they could really kind of force that fight to get to that backline. And you can actually see it baited out the Ancestral very early, and we'll play it through. Nurok gets the Ancestral because he's stuck in there, and they're so far in, he's actually going to fall. And so this is one of the fights that where PBA actually looked really good early on in the sense that they were able to put that pressure, and that's kind of what they relied upon. And so early on, it kind of worked out in their favor. I think as the game went on, things just tended to, I guess, fall over in favor of mYinsanity. I know that we're going to have a few more, but I think the thing that we look at and what we'll be able to look at is the fact that they were able to execute without hesitation on some certain calls that just changed the game.
And you mentioned, Dredd, that mYinsanity is probably one of the toughest opponents to sort of fight against in this tournament, not only because of their really good hero flexibility, but also because of their strong land performance. Can you tell us, maybe Gilly as well, who is their calming factor? Do you know?
I'd say Splendor,
Yeah.
at least in comms specifically. Like, if anyone else gets hype, at least what I was hearing in the comms, just even from this. Everyone else, like, when people would be like, nice, like, going in, Splendor would be like, we can do boss now. They still just, like, pulls them down.
Guys,
like,
just wanted to let
yes,
you know.
it's good,
Yeah.
but we could also go to boss, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, so I would say that a little bit. What about you?
I think I would agree. I think Splendor would be a part of it. I remember in Tours specifically, HasuObs, everybody was like, with your experience, like, are you kind of like, that's like the glue that holds the team together under pressure. And he was like, I actually don't speak that much when it comes to it. So I think I would give it to Splendor as well.
All right, nice. And he used to be the MVP in Tours France here as well. Jay-How, let's actually take a look at what replay number 2 has in offer.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some highlights that we're going to see from mYinsanity that we'll be able to take a look at here. And you can see, actually, let's go ahead and pause it. I want to take a look at the positioning. Li Ming already took a lot of damage. They're so far up, and Caleres was talking about the positioning, getting in very deep. You can see the health bars are so low, and Morales is doing everything that she possibly can to be able to keep this alive. Let's go ahead and move it forward just a little bit. You can see it was just like one collapse after the other, trying to stay alive up in the top, trying to stay alive in the bottom. Let's go ahead and freeze it again. Up top, very low. In the back, very low. mYinsanity recognized this, and they continue to put the pressure on as we'll roll it forward here one more time. And you can see they're just good at executing. But Sonya went in, just trying to come out. Morales was like, wait a minute. Zul's like, wait a minute. And everybody just kind of just started to fall apart. This is where the gems fell. Let's pause it again. This is kind of the huge moment. It's just behind there. That's where those 45 gems on Sonya fell off. They lost the fight, they lost the gems, and things just kind of fell apart from there.
Yeah, and that's something we mentioned before the game started, that mYinsanity is a team that focuses on objectives very well. And knowing when to actually hinder the opponent from turning in and when to snatch those gems away is very crucial, isn't it?
It's always very important, and there's a lot of battlegrounds where that comes into play. Your ability to stall out things like turn-ins, picking up tributes. And so on battlegrounds like that specifically, you always have to keep that in mind when you're making your compositions.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, Dread, can you tell us why mYinsanity, play it the way they play? I mean, is it really all due to this hero flexibility? Or do you think that they actually have a fixed battle plan and they say, we're going to pick this and that?
I think the flexibility is definitely beneficial for them. I think without a doubt the reason mYinsanity stands where they are now is that they have effective shot calling. And that sounds like a very basic thing, but you can have good decision making, but it doesn't mean that you're always effective, and efficient with your time. Like on Battlefield of Eternity, for instance, they'll get the keep just to where it's about to die, knowing the Immortal finishes it. They don't dance around and wait to see maybe we can get one more pick or whatever. They go, what's the next thing that's going to be up? The Mercs. Instantly rotate. Guess what? The minute that thing's dead, so is the Merc camp. Like they constantly are this. They have 20 seconds in the head. They already know what they're going to be doing.
German efficiency, you might call that. All right, Jay-How, take us to the final replay.
Yeah, I think that one of the highlights that we talk about with their team, not only the shot calling, but the decision making from every person on our team. Let's just pause it real quick as the Mighty Gust comes out. Actually, let's go ahead and roll it forward. As the Mighty Gust instantly came out, the entire team is on the backside, and they wasted no time. They just instantly dove in. You can see 1 kill. And just barely staying alive here. 2 kills. The Li Ming resets start to come in, or excuse me, not the resets, but Li Ming trying to do whatever she can to ward this off. But everything continued to push back against them over and over again. But the Mighty Gust, there was actually another Mighty Gust. I wish we would have got that replay, but there was a Mighty Gust that it was split-second decision making. Over and over, I think we might have somebody that knows something a little bit about that with us. But over and over again, a split decision. I love the play today.
Yeah. First of all, welcome to this cozy round of people sitting in chairs and talking about video games. HasuObs. How are you doing, sir?
Nice to be here. I'm doing good. I mean, we won 2-0. We kind of expected to win, but the games were very dominant, I think. Map 1, we didn't have a single death, and Map 2 also felt really, really good, I think.
Let's take a look at game number 2 again. Were you actually baffled by the choices of heroes that PBA made? Because during the draft, I think we heard some, I don't know, you couldn't believe what you saw, did you?
The most surprising thing was actually that they banned Asmodan. I think it's hero I think we never played in competitive scene, so I'm not really sure why they banned it. I mean, of course, KT and Johanna enabled the Asmodan in theory, but it's not something we have shown so far. So we thought it's kind of a dead ban for it will not affect us at all, at least in this draft. Other than that, I mean, I'm not sure about the medic pick. It was okay in early game, I think.
Right.
But medic has the problem that if the opponents have Fallstart, that the Mighty Gust is an extremely good tool to either gust the medic in or to gust some people out of position, so medic can't help at all.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, do you have any questions for HasuObs from a caster's or analyst perspective?
Yeah, game number one, we talked a little bit about it during the draft, and Dread highlighted on a lot of points. You guys focused a triple ranged comp there, and your ability to just continue to poke and poke and poke. And we actually highlighted your play on Li Ming during game number one. I mean, how did you feel with that comp? When you saw Vala there, did you say, hey, this, I mean, you said you were dominant and you felt confident going in, but did you feel the minute you saw that, I mean, it was just, this is how it's going to go, and we know that we've got this?
So with the draft we had Muradin, Tyrande, Li Ming, Lunara, I think, and Rega or something.
Yep.
So the support doesn't really matter too much in that draft, at least for the fights we take. So we have the one-shot potential with Muradin, Tyrande, Li Ming, but also if it comes to the stale position where one team is defending their boss, we are defending ours, we have Li Ming and Lunara poke, which is extremely good against the Immortal. So eventually we'll proc the face and from there on get the objective. So I think we had a super good draft, and I think it was extremely hard for them to fight against us because their best initiate was like Sundering, and then they had Tyrael as a warrior, which is, I mean, Sanct is a good tool, but it's not really helping you to get into the fight if you have a draft like that. So I think the map one, the draft was heavily in our favor.
In game number 2, you guys picked up Arthas, and although we've seen him with buffs and a complete talent rework, not too much, just here and there, teams trying him out. Where do you guys feel he fits in and best can shine in compositions?
I mean, we wanted to show them that they don't need to buff us.
We wondered about that.
No, on a serious note, we thought about Anubarak or Arthas as the last two picks, as the last pick to finish the draft. Because we thought a second warrior or a second frontliner would be good. We thought Thrall is probably not what we want, because he might get trouble against Xul, Sonya. Like, they had a very tanky front line, so yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Arthas is in a good spot. I think he's really good against a lot of melee heroes, obviously. His root is strong. I think he is good on Tomb when you rotate between the lanes, because he can walk in. He is, yeah, with his E, with his W, he applies pressure. So, yeah, we thought it's a good pick, and it actually worked out.
And, you know, there are a lot of big names here in this global tournament in the Summer Championship, like MVP, like, of course, X Team. Are there any teams that you do not want to go against, or are you so confident because you had those great results in France and also here so far that you're not afraid of anyone?
I don't think we are afraid of anyone. But obviously, if we play against the Korean teams, it would be very tough, I think. But we are not afraid for sure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for this interview, HasuObs, and good luck on your road to hopefully the top 4, because that's where we want to see you. At least I do.
Hashtag no bias.
Hashtag no bias. All right. Yeah, we're actually going to take a look at the updated group situation in Group B that we now find ourselves in with, of course, mYinsanity just taking down PBA very convincingly. They are now at the top spot here. PBA dropping a little bit, and the upcoming best of 3 is going to be Gale Force Esports, the powerhouse from NA, surprising a lot of people there in a positive way. And of course, they are going to duke it out between themselves and Big Gods from South America, which I'm perfectly honest with you, I do not know much about Big Gods because the scene over there is relatively, I wouldn't say small, but, you know, very clear structured in terms of teams.
Yes.
Is there anything you can tell me maybe about Big Gods, Gilly?
When you look at Big Gods, it's a similar situation to Negative Synergy in that they are clearly the best in their region, but that obviously brings difficulties to you in that you have fewer partners to actually scrim against, practice against, who can help elevate you and as a team and get better. It's really it when you get to come to the international stage. They were the team, basically Brave Ozone, that qualified for BlizzCon, weren't able to go because of visa issues, but still did represent the region as Big Gods at the Spring Global Championship. So they're obviously the best in the region. It's just difficult for them when it comes to going up against the other regions.
What do you think, Dred, about Gale Force Esports? It shouldn't be too hard of an obstacle to overcome, or do you think there's some surprise potential for Big Gods?
I don't know if I would give it to Big Gods as much as just this is such a young team.
Right.
Gale Force Esports is very, very young, not only in age and just experience overall, and this is the first time they've ever been on the international stage. Now, again, they probably have confidence going into this matchup, but I do expect to see some jitters, at least even when it comes out to these matches.
Yeah, J-Hell, any final words on this upcoming best of 3?
Yeah, the biggest thing with Gale Force is the fact that they've had a little bit of travel issues.
Yeah.
A couple members just got here today.
Yep.
Like an hour ago.
Like an hour ago, so something like that. But the fact that they do have that experience. They all have that Heroes of the Dorm experience. They're used to being on that big stage. I feel it does help them quite a bit. And it's just a matter of, does the travel affect them at this point?
Right.
Yeah, that's actually a very nice piece of information that you just shared there, J-Hell, because it is literally the case that Michael Udall and Alcaface, they just arrived, I think, 1 hour ago to the venue. There were some travel issues with the airplanes, so they didn't really have as much time to practice and prepare themselves for this tournament as the other teams, but still, I think they are, you know, on a roll. They carry the momentum because beating Naventic in the finals in NA wasn't an easy feat to accomplish. So without further ado, let's actually check out the bracket, guys, and see what's coming up here for the first day in the first group stage of the Heroes of the Storm Summer Championship. We see that mYinsanity is waiting in the winner's match, patiently, of course, and they are going to face the winner between the best of three, between Gale Force Esports and, of course, the Big Gods. So definitely a very important one to keep in mind. But also, the loser isn't just out yet. They do have another chance to redeem themselves in the lower bracket and getting themselves all the way to a loser's match and maybe the decider's match tomorrow. That's very important to keep track of. For now, I also want to encourage you to just maybe take out your phones and use that Twitter app and use that hashtag HGC and share your opinion on this tournament. Like, who's going to come out on top between those two upcoming teams? What are your favorite moments? Just anything you can think of, just share it with us and become part of the goodness. And that's pretty much it. We're now going to go into another short commercial break. After that, more NA between South American goodness.
Yeah.